In today's episode, you'll learn about using hypnosis for smoking cessation and weight management. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN who's been in practice for nearly 15 years. I've had the privilege of helping over 1,000 babies into this world, and I'm here to help you be calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 121. I'm so glad, as always, that you're spending some of your time with me today. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Rita Black. Rita is a clinical hypnotherapist and smoking cessation specialist who has helped over 10,000 smokers become non-smokers with her smoke-free 1-2-3 method. She's also is a weight loss expert and the author of From Fat to Thin, Thinking, Unlock Your Mind for Permanent Weight Loss. I wanted to talk about this topic of smoking cessation in pregnancy because it's not something that's talked about a lot. There's a lot of shame and judgment around smoking in pregnancy. Now, according to the CDC, roughly 7% of women who gave birth in 2016, and that's when they have the last data available, smoke cigarettes during their pregnancy. Some studies estimate that that is higher, even as high as 10 to 15%. I suspect the number is higher than 7%, again, because there is a lot of shame around smoking and not wanting to admit that you smoke. Now, even though we know that smoking during pregnancy has been linked to a lot of negative outcomes like low birth weight, preterm birth, birth defects, it is hard to quit. It's an addiction, and it takes the average person 5 to 10 times before they quit for good. Also, the medical community doesn't always do a great job of offering resources to help people quit smoking. Now, hypnosis has mixed evidence when it comes to how effective it is for smoking cessation. Some studies show that it helps. Some studies show that it doesn't make a difference over traditional behavioral health interventions. However, it is low risk. It definitely does work for some people, and it may help you avoid nicotine replacements like patches or vaping. And since pregnancy can often be an inspirational time to make changes in your health, we should definitely talk about this topic. So Rita and I talk about what is hypnosis, and it is not making you do something that you don't want to do, like the teacup and get out. Also, how hypnosis works to help with smoking cessation. It actually works much faster than I realized. She talks about the important mindset shifts that need to happen in order to really make any habit change, who's a good candidate for hypnosis, whether it's smoking cessation or weight reduction, what should someone look for in a hypnotherapist, and much, much more. There is a lot to learn in this episode, whether you smoke or not. I know I learned a lot that I didn't know, and you will too. Now, before we get into the episode, let me do a listener shout out. This is to Allison Kingsley, and the title of the review says, Building My Confidence, Knowledge, and Readiness for Baby Number 1. The review says, stumbled across this podcast when seeking additional education on certain aspects of childbirth. And at week 28, I am feeling confident, empowered, and a lot more ready for my natural birth than what I would have been without many of Dr. Rankin's podcasts. There's truly an episode for every expecting mother, every birth partner, or woman interested in the different aspects and avenues of birth. Although she is not my personal doctor, I feel so much more prepared when having discussions with my midwives, and I'm eternally grateful for this podcast and all the gems she drops for us for free. Thank you for starting this show and empowering women throughout the years. Well, thank you so much, Allison, for that lovely, kind review. I so appreciate you taking the time to leave me that delightful message. Now, you mentioned that the podcast was free. Another great free resource I have is my free online class on how to make a birth plan that works. A lot of people don't realize that a birth plan is just really so much more than that piece of paper that you bring to the hospital. That's actually like the worst way, for lack of a better way of saying it, to do a birth plan. Making a birth plan really needs to be about a process where you decide what you want for your birth and you talk about that with your providers, and you understand how the hospital approaches birth to make sure that all of those important factors are on the same page and ready to support you and what you want for your birth in the context of your own unique pregnancy circumstances. So in this free 1-hour class, I give you questions to ask so that you can go through that process and learn how to make a birth plan that works. You can sign up for the class, drnicolerankins.com/registered. It's offered several times a day on demand. And here's the secret. Inside of that free class, there's a special discount that is unlocked on the birth preparation course, which is my signature online childbirth education class. So that is another reason to go through the free class. Do check it out again. It's drnicolerankins.com/register. All right, let's get into the episode with Rita Black. Thank you so much, Rita, for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I am super excited to have you talk about this topic.
Oh, well, I am super excited to talk about this topic. It's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, let's dive right in. So why don't you start off by telling us a bit about yourself and your work and your family, if you'd like.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so I actually really began my business when I had my daughter over, now she's 19, so a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I primarily help people stop smoking and manage their weight. And why I got into hypnotherapy was I was somebody who struggled for years smoking. I was a pack and a half a day smoker, and tried many, many times to stop. And then I was successful myself with hypnosis. And then I also struggled with my weight up and down the scale, 40 pounds. And I actually smoked to help manage my weight, which if anybody of your listeners or anybody that knows, a lot of times with women, they're really afraid to stop smoking because of weight gain. Right. So when I quit smoking, I kind of had to sit down with myself and say, you know what, you can figure this out with the weight thing too. And I used hypnosis and a lot of other cognitive behavioral tools to stop. And then the time came for me, I just decided to dive into hypnosis. And so I became a hypnotherapist. And then, at the same time, you asked me about my family. Yeah. I had my daughter, and as she was a little girl, I started my business. And so my daughter, and then I have a son. So my children are now older. My daughter is gone away. She's at Berkeley. She's in her freshman year, and she did the whole COVID, she's at school, but she hasn't been in a classroom yet. Oh. And my son is, 15 and in the next room. Okay. And I live in LA, beautiful LA. Okay.
Nice. So talk about what type of training did it take for you to become a certified clinical hypnotherapist?
Yeah. There are so many different ways that you can train to become a hypnotherapist. It's not like becoming a therapist. Mm-hmm. I studied psychology at NYU many years ago, but I didn't. So I specialized in hypnotherapy. I went to a school, it was called Pacific University. I studied for a year, did courses and everything, but it's currently hypnosis isn't, being a hypnotherapist isn't something that is licensed, but you are certified, right? So you take tests every year, you have to take a certain amount of courses, kind of like somebody else who's licensed, but the access to entry to it is a different. So for me, I did, a training, and then I specialized, kind of like when doctors specialize, but nothing like the amount of time, but I specialized for smoking cessation and for weight management. So I studied and mentored with different people for those particular niches.
Gotcha. But you've been doing this a long time.
Oh my gosh. And I would say my major training was in the field with just working with people, and especially with smoking, because I really learned what people needed. And with weight as well. I mean, both of those things, it's trial and error, but like over the years, you really see what people need, and you pivot and get better at it. Absolutely.
Exactly. So why don't we first talk about what is hypnosis? Because I think we all have these perceptions of,
Oh, yeah.
you dangling something and we all get sort of out of it.
Or
Yes.
if you watched Get Out, like the teacup,
Yes.
the lady with the
Yes.
teacup
Yes.
falling through the floor. I kind of joke with that with my clients. Yeah. So hypnosis is really a relaxed mind technique where your unconscious mind becomes more open to ideas of change. So just to kind of like give you a visual, like I draw a circle and like the 12% of your mind is your conscious, critical, analytical thinking. So like for a smoker, about 12% of your mind wants to quit smoking. And that's where your willpower, the logical mind is, right? The other 88% is all the other things, your identity, your habits, your beliefs, the part of your survival mechanism. I mean, so many things are your imagination, your memory, all these things exist in your subconscious. And so when you have a problem that's persisting, a lot of times it's that the subconscious mind has no idea you want that change. It's just sitting there doing everything on automatic pilot. And there's a defensive mechanism that kind of filters out anything that doesn't agree with what you already know to be true about the world. So like in the first 20 years of your life, you're sort of imprinted with beliefs and morals and all those things that really work well for you. And then, we get millions of bits of information that hit our brain, and our brain needs some sort of like sorting device. And our critical filter really just accepts the stuff that realigns us with the stuff that comes. And that's why, like, it's kind of like the internet, and we're all in our own little echo chamber in our social media because of the way the internet works. It kind of filters through everything that isn't going to pertain to you and only gives you that information that's going to, or ads and stuff that pertain to you. It's kind of what the mind does. So the mind's like, if you think it's hard to quit smoking, your mind's going to reinforce that idea.
Gotcha.
On a subconscious level. So I say, 12% wants to quit. The other 88% wants things to stay exactly as they are. So what hypnosis does is, in the state of hypnosis, your critical filter becomes relaxed. So your unconscious mind becomes more open to ideas of change. So the belief system, the habits you can lay in suggestions that can be altered. Now, you talked about the movies with the people like walking around in a trance and stuff like that. Or, this authoritarian guy in a polyester suit and a mustache, dangling the watch and saying, you will do what I say.
Right.
The conscious mind has to be aligned with what the changes are. And so that is why hypnotherapy is safe, because you need to want the change for it to happen. And,
Got it.
And that's why I think there's misconceptions, like people think, oh, well, you can make me want to quit smoking. And I was like, no, I can't make you want, but if you want to quit smoking, we can get your subconscious mind to get aligned with that really quickly. But you have to want that change.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that answered your question.
100%. Yeah. And I think that piece that's really important, because you definitely think of it as someone controlling what you do, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's just helping. It's more so helping you take control of a behavior that you already want to do.
Correct. I have a joke. I say, if I was that powerful, my husband would pick up his socks. I could hypnotize my husband and my son both to pick up their dirty socks, and I haven't done that yet, so I'm not that powerful.
Exactly.
I say my clients, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You need to want the change, and you are really the one in control in a session.
Got it. Love it. So how often do you treat pregnant people who are smokers?
Yeah, more often than you probably would think. I think there is a big, I live in Los Angeles, right? And smoking is really just generally culturally, smoking is frowned upon. So a lot of people hide it. So, when I say I help people stop smoking, people will say to me, oh, well, nobody smokes anymore. I was like, think again. There's a lot of secret smokers out there. And so my business is quite busy. So I do see a fair amount of women who find out that they're pregnant, and, they might be already trying to stop, but they're too stressed out by whatever is going on in their life, whether it's just the fact that they already have a child and they're taking care of the child and now they found out they're pregnant, or so stress might be keeping them from stopping. They just might have been such a heavy smoker for so long that the idea of smoking, is stopping. It freaks them out. And, also people, their doctors might say to them, well, you can vape. But the problem with vaping is that it also is as dangerous as smoking for, like now the research is showing,
Right.
like for the infant brain and so, and heart and many, many things. I do get probably about 4 or 5 women a month come to see me personally. And then I have an online course that other, people will come and, enroll in and go through.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's actually, more than I would have thought. And, pregnancy also presents itself, I'm sure, as that window of opportunity where you have people that are perceptive and want to change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think so much of becoming a non-smoker is really that it's not about not smoking. It's about creating a new identity and stepping into it as a non-smoker. The brain, for any transformation to happen on a subconscious level, you need to hit identity first. And what you say, Nicole, is so true, because when a woman finds out that she's pregnant, it's an identity shift right there and then. It's like in that millisecond, you're like an expectant mother. You all of a sudden won't go from just being this woman living her life to like, I'm a mom to be. And that totally is called a reframe. You're reframing how you see yourself. And so in becoming a non-smoker, I say to people often, I'll say, remember when you found out you were pregnant and you stepped into that new identity in that second? It's the same with becoming a non-smoker. So for a lot of women, when they find out they're pregnant, and they can like kind of wrap their mind around like smoking isn't an option, because when smoking isn't an option in the mind doesn't really bug you for it. So there are a lot of women who do find out they're pregnant and they can stop on a dime. But then there are the others, like I said, for whatever reason, they're too stressed.
Sure.
It's not that anything is wrong with them. It's just that they're, whatever their deeper subconscious is just like a little more resistant. And that's when they come to see me, and they just want somebody to guide them through the process. So, it's fascinating. And here's something else that I find is really interesting. And I don't know if your listeners with pregnancy is that because it's not an option in the mind, like for that, once you stop, so many women can stop smoking during their pregnancy and it's easy.
Nice.
Yeah, it can be easy. But here's my word of advice.
Right.
See yourself as a non-smoker for the rest of your life, because the weird thing, what happens with the brain, as soon as the baby's born, the brain's like, okay, well, we can smoke again. And the cravings start to come back. So, but if you can say, I'm going to be a non-smoking mom and really align yourself with that identity for the rest of your life, then I have women who might come to me like in their 40s or 50s and said, oh yeah, when I had my children, I just was like, that's not an option. And, they were a non-smoker for years and it totally stuck.
Nice. Yeah. So are there any special considerations when you use hypnosis on pregnant people?
No, not at all, because hypnosis, one, is super relaxing. So people love it. And I'm sure you've heard of hypnobirthing. There is like a whole sector. In fact, I did hypnobirthing with both of my children. I didn't do it naturally. I did hypnobirthing, and I said, give me the drugs too. But
nothing wrong with that.
But my husband gave me some suggestions, and I listened to this wonderful, rainbow relaxation. So yes, hypnosis is perfectly fine when you're pregnant. It's perfectly safe. There's no need to worry about that.
Do anything different. Yeah. So why don't we go through a little bit of an overview of the process of using hypnosis?
Sure. So the way that when, for instance, somebody comes to me, like there's, I work with two things, smoking and with weight management. And the hypnosis for the smoking is really one session. Like somebody comes to me a smoker, they leave a non-smoker.
Really? Okay. Really?
Yes. I mean, that's how I work. There are people who offer 6 sessions, but right. I'm like, You can do it in one. And
Wow.
the reason that I work with this way is
Uh-huh.
because really it is about getting the mind to make really one decision, and that decision is I'm going to be a non-smoker, and really, but to sign off on that on multiple levels, right? So when somebody comes to see me, I spend 90 minutes preparing them, and then in my online course, like it's like 2 hours preparing them to be a non-smoker. So what I mean is like cognitively breaking down any resistance that they have, and again with their agreement, like we reframe we take away the fear. Basically we're removing the fear of like, because the idea of most people approach quitting smoking from this idea of like, I'm taking away something that I've depended upon.
Mm-hmm.
And what the shift we create is that, oh no, you've been a slave of this thing, and now you're taking back your power and you're stepping into your power and creating something new. Because the brain loves to create new things. It just doesn't like to get, like let go of stuff. So
Got
we
it.
completely change that, the way they look at it, so that by the time we even get to the hypnosis, they're like, I am so ready to be a non-smoker. And
Got
then
it.
we do the session and then they leave and they're done. And, for whatever reason, there's any like residual problems, I have people come back, for another session, but usually most people can stop in a session. Now with weight management, it's different because once you're a non-smoker, you never need to smoke again in order to live your life.
Mm-hmm.
But with weight, obviously you're
You
dealing,
still got to eat. Yeah.
you got to eat. And there's so much. I mean, like the first thing that's put in your mouth when you're born is either a bottle or a boob, right? And, like that's food and
Yeah.
we start our relationship with food so much earlier. It's so much more like ingrained in our culture and
Right.
our
Right.
life.
Right.
So that's more involved. But really, all of the work I do is it's not just hypnosis, but I work with people cognitively, like, empowering them to see they're the one in control. And then we use hypnosis to take it to the deeper level and to make that change. So if I'm doing a hypnosis session for weight, we'll talk about like what the resistance is for that particular thing. Maybe it's night eating, maybe it's getting to exercise, maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
like overeating carbohydrates and they want to stop. Then we talk about that. We look at how that's impacting them. We look how they can become empowered by letting it go. And then we use the hypnosis to take that to the deeper level. And then, especially with the weight, I offer backup, like continuing to listen to the hypnosis, because like I said, with the weight stuff, it's so enmeshed that I find that having additional audio is helpful.
Sure, sure. Do you ever, with the weight piece, do you say like, maybe you want to consider working with other professionals as well?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people come to me after working. I mean, I've had people come to me after gastric bypass, like they lost the weight, but then they started gaining it back. Because really, I really work with the mental piece. And so much of weight management, we get stuck in this all or nothing, like, oh, I was good. Like, so a lot of people might be on a specific diet plan, like keto, or be working with a nutritionist, but they can't get over the mind habit stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I blew it, so I'll start again tomorrow. And then they eat all weekend long. And then they get to Monday and they're like, oh, wow, like, and it's a vicious cycle.
Yep.
And so I spend a lot of my focus on breaking those sort of mental habits that aren't being like other experts would probably be focusing on food or exercise. And I really focus on the mental piece.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So then how do they maintain that smoking cessation after the session? Or you said with the weight loss, they can get ongoing things. I know with smoking, especially, it takes people on average, anywhere from 7 to 30 times to quit for good. So
Yeah.
how do they maintain it?
Well, so here's the thing is that I really use this idea of there's two brains. We have a smoker brain and we have a non-smoker brain. And most people are non-smokers, even heavy smokers who've been smoking forever. They're at least a non-smoker for the first 13, 14 years of their life. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I've had some people who started when they're 9, but most people don't start until they're teenagers or a little older. And, the crazy thing is, Nicole, what I've learned over the years working with, thousands of people is that the second anybody uses nicotine, their entire brain will go back to smoking. I think people are under the illusion that, oh, I could just smoke one. And that's, one of my biggest frustrations is that sometimes people will do a session with me, they leave and they'll say, oh my God, that was so easy. And I love being a non-smoker. But I went to a party and then my friend said, well, let's test it. Just smoke a cigarette. And the problem with that is the second you use nicotine, your mind will go back. But you ask, like, how do they maintain it? Well, the thing is, once a person is a non-smoker, I really focus them on being a non-smoker. So building that brain back, it's like a muscle where they're living in that non-smoker brain and thinking about the smoker brain as I call it the cigarette monster or the nicotine monster. Like that monster is getting weaker the longer that they're a non-smoker. And it's like this idea of putting that brain into hibernation. And the only thing that is going to wake up that brain is if they use nicotine in any shape or form.
Right.
And I know because you're a doctor, I'm sure you're very exposed to addiction. And it's just that once that wiring in the brain is engaged, the brain will go back. Definitely. And it's very hard to fight against that. So I do, when somebody works with me, whether it's on my online thing or, personally, I do give them backup audio as well to listen to, coaching, reinforcement hypnosis, and stress management hypnosis. So, but for a lot of people, once they really make that shift in their brain, and that's why my company is called Shift Hypnosis, is that once they make that shift, they can feel like they really put it high. Like for example, I worked with a woman Friday who had been smoking for 40 years, and she was like, I've tried so many times to quit. And like you said, like 30 times to quit. But once we did that session, like she literally, it was so amazing. She sent me this little audio that was like, she's like, I'm so happy to be a non-smoker and I'm free. And once somebody steps in their freedom like that, they can feel elated. It doesn't have to be like cravings and withdrawal, because the actual physical withdrawal from nicotine is very mild. Most of what people experience in that sort of first few days is sugar re-regulation, because there's sugar in cigarettes. And the tobacco is cured in corn syrup. So they're having higher insulin levels. And this is something else, like for pregnancy, because I know you have to regulate your insulin, that a lot of people don't realize that there is a lot that smoking elevates your insulin levels. Nicotine elevates your insulin, but so does the corn syrup, that serum that the tobacco for most commercial cigarettes, like not the American spirits, but American spirits are cured in molasses. So that's still going to have an impact.
Sure. I did not know that.
I know a lot of people don't, and doctors don't. I work with doctors. I have doctors who come to see me who are smokers and nurses, and they're like, what? I'm pre-diabetic. And I'm like, I know. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it is insane.
Learn something new every day. I love it. I love it. So if somebody's thinking about hypnosis, first off, are there people who are good candidates or not great candidates for it?
I think that what I say to people is, if you, the litmus test for, like for stopping smoking is what you're getting from smoking currently being outweighed by what you could get as a non-smoker, then I think you're a good candidate for smoking cessation hypnosis. You've got to want the change. Hypnosis, like people will call me all the time and say, my son is on meth and he needs to get off. Now, I don't work with addictions like that, but they're like, he doesn't want to stop, but I want him to stop. I'm like, I'm sorry, he's not going to be a good candidate for hypnosis. He needs to want the change. There are some people who are what you would call somnambulistic, which means like they can go into trance like in a second. They don't need a lot of relaxation. Like the second they close their eyes, you can see that their brain goes into that state really, really quickly.
Right.
But most people can be hypnotized. The people who can't be might be epileptics,
Okay.
who have epilepsy, and their epilepsy isn't treated. If untreated bipolar, or somebody who has like a really low IQ. But most people with an IQ of like 90 and above can be hypnotized if they really want the change, and if they have a good hypnotherapist, somebody who knows what they're doing.
Nice. So speaking of hypnotherapists, what should someone look for in a hypnotherapist?
Right. Oh, well, that's a great question. I would say you want to feel like you trust this person, right? So Yelp is actually a really great place to find hypnotherapists because there's a lot of reviews. Like that's how most people find me.
Right.
So that I don't think that. I think you want to, like I said, I think you want to look at their reviews and just go, has this person, and ask them, are you a specialist in what I've done? You don't want, like, because a lot of hypnotherapists will do everything.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do phobias and past life regression and all of these things. And they'll say, I can do all of these things. But I find the people like that I have relationship with other hypnotherapists, they specialize.
Gotcha.
And that's what, like, if you want somebody for sleep hypnosis, find a sleep hypnotherapist. So because then they're going to have the breadth of experience, the deep training, like that they'll know what they're doing. So that's what I would say for sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So how much does hypnosis typically cost, and does insurance ever cover it?
Yeah, that's an awesome question too. It really depends on the state and your insurance. So in California, insurance doesn't cover hypnosis. However, if you have a flex plan, and some employers if you have a flex plan, you can use your flex credit card, and it covers smoking cessation.
Gotcha.
So certain things will be covered. So you would have to ask your insurance provider. Weight management sometimes is covered, but it really does depend on the insurance provider. And hypnosis can really range in cost. So, I mean, I've had people tell me they paid $4,000 for a weight loss hypnosis, not like one session, but like a course. I'm like, what? That is insane.
That's a lot. Yeah.
That is a lot. Some people charge, like $1,000 for smoking cessation. I don't. Like, I try to make my rates reasonable, and there are really good people out there who are reasonable, but like you could pay like $100 for a session. Sometimes, like I said, like for smoking cessation, somebody might charge you several $100s for 6 sessions.
Sure.
It really, it varies so crazily, but like, and my online smoking cessation session is incredibly reasonable. I am more expensive, but I'm not like thousands. Like I really have a reasonable rate.
Yeah.
I just work in Los Angeles. It's so expensive here. I have to cover my.
You have to. I mean, you got to live. And I mean, you're also providing a very important and valuable service.
Oh my gosh. People, a pack of cigarettes a day is now about $10, at least in California. And I say to people, you are saving $3,500 a year. It's like being on a pension.
There you go.
And getting a pension. And in Australia, can you believe that cigarettes are $35 a pack?
Jesus.
Like, that's insane.
That is insane. That is really, really high. That's obviously a deterrent to get people from smoking. I wonder, does it work?
I don't know. I mean, I have people all over the globe. So like I do have Australian clients who are, but I guess they still pay for it. I don't know.
I guess so. All right. So, as we wrap up, are there any misconceptions about hypnosis that you want to clarify or clear up?
Well, I think the main thing is we've covered, which is hypnosis is not magic or voodoo. Like people will, especially in the early days of, when I started working in the early 2000s. And at that point, I think hypnosis, because meditation has become such a big thing and has come more into the light, like people see it more as a modality for healing versus voodoo or magic, but
Right.
people would ask me like, am I going to bark like a dog or quack like a duck? And I'm like, no. And like I said, I can't make you do anything. If you want to bark like a dog, I mean, maybe we can make that
Then that's
happen.
on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I can't make you. And I think the movies also kind of reinforce that stigma, that
Hmm.
image. But yeah, no, and the other thing with smoking cessation, I think people are very curious about like, well, what are you doing for me? Like, are you going to erase the fact that I ever smoked? And
Huh.
and I was like, no, I can't do that. But what we can do is get you really aligned with the fact that you're a non-smoker, so it can just be easy and you can feel happy about it. You'll remember you smoked, but you'll go, wow, I smoked. That's kind of crazy.
Sure.
But
Right.
yeah, so it's a different it's yeah. So
Yeah.
you can't erase or people will ask me, "Can you erase my ex-boyfriend from my mind?" I'm like, "No."
I can't.
But but we can make
Huh,
you
that's
really
funny.
happy
That
that
is
you guys
funny.
are done, like
Yeah,
that.
there you
Yeah.
go. There you go. And it sounds like the movie and TV has done to hypnosis what they've also done to labor, where it's
Oh,
presented in a
yeah.
way that's so not like reality.
Oh, I never thought about that. Like, that must make your
Mhm.
job so hard.
It does sometimes. People think that they're gonna have sometimes think they're gonna have 2 contractions and that's labor. It's like,
Oh,
no, that's not exactly
wow.
how it works.
Yeah.
So so we share that similarity.
Yeah, thanks a
Oh,
lot, television.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So what is the most frustrating part of your work?
I think the most frustrating part is, I mean, two big frustrations. One is that people have that misconception about hypnosis. Also, that when people get that change, like they stop smoking and it's easy, that then they're like, well, I thought it was easy. So I just smoked. And I'm like, why'd you do that? Because
Ah,
once you go back to smoking, it's not like hypnosis will help you stop, but it's not like this magic spell where if you smoke again, you're not go do you
mhm.
know what I mean? Like, it's,
Right, right,
yeah,
right.
so I think that's frustrating. The other thing is that people I find it, and maybe you find this too because you empower women to have amazing births, that people don't believe in themselves. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
yeah, they don't
yes,
believe
yes.
that they can do it, and, it's hard it makes me sad more than anything else. It's
Yeah,
like I get these women who have been smoking for 40 years, and they're just like, "I don't believe I can do it." And they can, but they have to believe in themselves. So I
yeah.
feel like a lot of my job, I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of my time helping people really believe that they can do it.
100%. Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. So what about on the flip side? What's the most rewarding part?
I mean, people will tell me all the time, like, you changed my life. I mean, like, I work with, because I'm in LA, I work with celebrities. I work with like people who have one name. I work with, but like the most rewarding thing for me isn't all the glamorous stuff. It really is
Mhm.
like, like the women who have been like for instance, I think I was telling you before we turned on record, like I work with a lot of grandmas who, women who are going to be a grandma for the first time,
Right.
and they're like, my daughter doesn't want me to be around the baby and smoking. I don't, but I don't believe I can do it. And when they become a non-smoker and they're like, I'm holding my grandchild and I'm a
Mm.
non-smoker, and it's
That's
changed their
beautiful.
life.
Yeah.
It is amazing. Or that, that a child can go and quit smoking and not hide that from their parents, or somebody who's sick and they become a non-smoker. And it's so empowering because it's not just about smoking. It's not just about weight. It's about believing in yourself. And I think deep down, like when people, you see those transformations, and I'm sure, like, when you visit women after they give birth, it's like, that's such an empowering experience.
It
I mean,
is.
like, I
Yeah.
think the most empowering days of my life were the 2 days I gave birth.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I remember when I had my son, because I knew he was the last one. I don't think I ever felt so complete as that moment where I kind of sat back and was like, "Oh
I
yeah,
did this.
baby,
Yeah.
I did that." And I think that's what I love the most about what I do is I get to see people see how powerful they are.
That is really, really beautiful. Really beautiful. I
Oh,
love
well,
that.
thank
So,
you.
what's your favorite piece of advice that you would give to someone who's pregnant and trying to quit smoking, or even someone who's postpartum and wanting to work on their weight? What kind of advice would you give?
I would say, again, you are way more powerful than you think you are. I think really what you want to focus on is not what you're not going to do, like not smoking or trying to lose weight, but what do you want to create? And, um, making that decision to be a non-smoker, once you step into that identity, you can do it. You can walk forward on that path. And the same thing with managing your weight. I think you got to love yourself after you give birth and go, okay, I love my body as it is right now. It just gave birth to this amazing being. And, I can get back to where I was, and I just need to take one baby step at a time. I think doing what you say you're going to do. So set realistic goals. Cause I think one thing after women give birth is like, sometimes if you've gained weight, you so quickly want to get that weight off,
Sure.
and you have this body hate. And the problem with that is then that creates that negative reinforcement. So they'll go and try to lose 10 pounds a week, and that's not doable. And then it sets them up in this failure cycle, like, oh, I didn't do what I was going to, and then you stop believing in yourself. So I think set really realistic goals, and create what I call your inner coach. Like, really talk to yourself in an empowering voice, because it's really easy to let that inner critic take over.
100%. Excellent, excellent advice. So where can people find you? And I know you have a couple of free resources and things like that.
Yeah. So, I have I have a number of websites, but the one for weight is www.shiftweightmastery.com. I have a book on Amazon called, it'll probably be in my show notes, but so I won't get into that, but it's a book that actually has hypnosis with it. So if you're looking to lose weight, probably the cheapest way with hypnosis is because it has free hypnosis with it and a 30-day process, and it's very empowering.
Okay. What's the title of it, you said?
It's called From Fat to Thin Thinking, Unlock Your Mind for Permanent Weight Loss. Okay. And you can read all the reviews on Amazon. It's helped a lot of people lose weight. And then I have a podcast called Thin Thinking. And so 2 freebies that I think are going to be in the show notes is, one, I do have if you want to know how I have a master class. It doesn't have hypnosis, but for stopping smoking. It's called How to Stop Smoking Without Withdrawal, Cravings, or Weight Gain. And I really get into the mindset of stopping smoking. And it's very helpful for a lot of people.
Sure.
The other one is a free sugar cravings hypnosis session that you can go, and it's got coaching and shift out of sugar cravings hypnosis if you just want to test drive hypnosis and see what it feels like for free.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rita, for coming onto the podcast. This has been super, super informative. I know I have learned a lot, and I know the listeners will love it as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and happy pregnancies, everyone. Oh my gosh. Enjoy.
Yes. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Thanks, Rita.
Take care. Thank you.
All right. Wasn't that a great episode? Really informative. Rita is very passionate, obviously, about her work, and I'm grateful that she came on. I love to hear people when they're really committed and excited about what they do, and that really comes through in Rita's voice. So thank you, Rita, for that great episode. Now, after every episode, when I have a guest on, I do something called Nicoles Notes, where I do my top 3 or 4 takeaways from the episode. So here are my Nicoles Notes from my conversation with Rita. Number 1, pregnancy is a great time to try to improve your health. You're often motivated because you want to do better, you want to get healthier. So this is a great time to pick up a new habit and try to improve your health. And you don't have to do all the things at once. Sometimes it feels like you have to do everything, but pick something that you can do, whether it's change your eating habits and improve what you're eating, whether it's exercise and move your body more, whether it's something like working on your mind and your mental health with things like meditation or yoga to kind of help with those pieces of things. Use pregnancy as a time to improve your overall health and well-being. Use that motivational state to help you. Number 2, it can be a little bit tempting to judge people when they have behaviors or do things that are harmful to themselves or to their developing baby. And I would just encourage us all to have some compassion. And I'm saying that for myself just as much as I'm saying that for you all, because it's easy to kind of make those judgments and things like that. But I have learned from my 15 years of experience that people have life circumstances and a lot of things that contribute to where they are and the things that they do that are difficult to understand and are very difficult to experience. And the way people cope with things, the way people manage things, some people are just trying to get through day to day and survive. So before you pass judgment on something that someone is doing, I would encourage you again to have some compassion, to step back before you make that proclamation or that judgment about their character or who they are, and keep a more open mind. We all have things that we need to work on. We all have behaviors and things that we need to improve. So again, just keep that compassion and empathy in place. And then the last thing I want to say is that another resource, if you're trying to quit smoking, is 1-800-QUIT-NOW. It is a free number that you can call. It's a service offered through the government that connects you with quitting coaches and things like that. So that's another resource you can try if you are trying to quit smoking during pregnancy. It's 1-800-QUIT-NOW. Lots of great resources for you there. All right, so there you have it. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcast and Google Podcast and Spotify and Stitcher, wherever you're listening to me right now. And of course, I would love it if you leave a review in Apple Podcast in particular. It helps the show to grow. It helps other women to find the show. And I love doing shout outs from those reviews as well. So leave me that honest review in Apple Podcast if you so desire. I so appreciate it. Also, be sure to check out that free online class, How to Make a Birth Plan That Works. This class is one that you must take before you write a single word of your birth plan. It's drnicolerankins.com/register. It's completely free. You got no excuse not to take it. Take it. All right. So that's it for this episode. Do come on back next week. And until then, I wish you a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. Head to my website, drnicolerankins.com, to get even more great information, including free downloadable resources on how to manage pain and labor and warning signs to look out for after birth. You'll also find information on my free online class on how to make a birth plan that works, as well as everything you need to know about my signature online childbirth education class, the Birth Preparation Course. Again, that's drnicolerankins.com, and I will see you next week.